I, male 30, had never met my stepbrother until last week. My parents split up when I was really young and I barely knew my dad. He sent alimony and, well, that was about it. It's not like I never had an interaction with him or don't have any fond memories of trips and stuff, but the fact of the matter was that I wasn't really much of a priority for him. He got remarried when I was 10, and my stepbrother Justin, male, 18, was born shortly after. After my dad's wedding, he moved abroad in order to live with his wife in her home country, UK, and that cut our relationship down even more. I didn't want to keep putting in the effort to be recognized by my dad, even at that young age, and he slowly stopped becoming an important part of my journey growing up. My mom, however, did everything for me, and she taught me how to be a kind and loving person. She always tried to help me understand my dad's point of view and was the glue that stopped me from completely cutting off all contact with him. However, she passed away when I was 20 years old due to cancer. Her loss still affects me to this day, and without her around, I felt like I had been untethered by the one person who loved me unconditionally. With that glue gone, I felt like I would basically lose all touch with my dad, too. But to my surprise, he not only came for Mom's funeral, but stayed at my place for a few weeks, helping me feel better and grieve. He told me stories about what Mom was like as a college student, the things she did, and her odd mannerisms, which he still remembers. Those couple of weeks were probably the closest emotionally I had ever been to him in my life. It made me come to terms with the fact that I still had a parental figure in my life, and when he went back to the UK, we kept in touch. Sometimes I would have video calls with him and briefly speak with his wife or Justin, but the bond was more of politeness than anything else. I understood that they were a different part of my dad's life, and neither me nor his family were that interested in blending together. Besides, it's tough to form much of a bond when you live all the way across the ocean. My dad made frequent trips to the US for work, and I got to catch up with him then. During one of those meetups, there was a really cathartic moment between us where he apologized for not prioritizing me during my childhood and even told me that he had left me a significant chunk of money in his will. I remember him saying, "I know this can't make up for anything in the past, son. I just hope it'll keep your future steady." It was a heart to heart that stuck with me, and I forgave him for his crappy parenting as I was growing up. Not entirely. I don't even think it's possible to forgive someone entirely for that, but I wanted to remove the roadblock towards a growing bond I had with him. Things changed after that moment. It began to feel like I had a family again. My dad and his family, barring Justin because he had his A-level exams, came to my wedding to Clara, female 32, when I was 28, and I even visited the UK as a part of my honeymoon tour. My dad's wife was a lovely woman, albeit a bit distanced from real life when it comes to money matters. I mean, dad is wealthy, and she's from a family that's so posh that they're walking British stereotypes, like straight out of Downton Abbey. So while we got along, there was definitely a cultural gap between us. I was no longer as isolated as I thought I would be. Things seemed to turn out even better because Dad was planning to settle in the US after retiring, which was only a few years away. He also wanted Justin to go to his alma mater, so there was a chance that I would finally meet my stepbrother. As luck would have it, I had settled quite close to Dad's college, and having gone there myself, I thought it would be a good idea to invite Justin to live with me and Clara to get used to American life. Dad was ecstatic at the idea, and in a few short weeks, Justin was at my doorstep. However, from the moment we met, there was tension between us. Justin had grown up with two rich parents while I had grown up with one. He was spoiled, and his whole way of living was completely alien to me. In the one day we met, he wasted food at a restaurant, made fun of a waitress for wanting a bloody tip, and spent thousands of dollars at the airport mall. I'm not kidding. Thousands of dollars. He was upset that our house didn't have an outdoor pool and basically demeaned me and Clara for living like this. I kept it in when I was in front of him, but I was seething inside. As soon as I got the chance, I phoned my dad and told him that this wasn't going to work out. To my surprise, he didn't want to hear it at all. I don't know where this was coming from, but he felt resentful that I wasn't giving Justin a chance. He said, "Come on, you've known him for one day. He's a good kid, I swear. Please, just give him a chance." I mean, I understand his point of view, but at the same time, you can just tell that someone is going to be an entitled jerk from the moment you meet them. Again, all of these thoughts were just that, thoughts. I was a lot more diplomatic about explaining why I didn't want Justin around, but it failed. The conversation got a bit messy, and my dad said, "If you two can't be brothers, I'd have to give my wealth to the person I've been able to raise. You get that, right? You two need to get along because I want to have a family with no infighting. Otherwise, we can just have the kind of relationship we had before, OP. You need to commit, not just to me, but to my wife and kid too." That was a low blow, IMO. But I decided that maybe it would be best to try and keep Justin around for a few more weeks. After that, Dad would also be in the US and my idiotic stepbrother would be off my hands. Simple enough, right? Wrong. So wrong. The next day, while Clara and I went off to work, Justin was asleep in the guest bedroom. I asked him what his plans were and whether he needed any help with his admission process, but he just said he had jet lag and that he'd just relax all day. When I got home in the evening, the house was a mess. There was a huge party going on at my house because apparently he went out in the afternoon and made friends with some girls he wanted to impress. After buying half of Tiffany's for them, he let them and all their friends have a party at my house. As I was kicking everyone out, Clara came out of the house visibly agitated and told me that some drunk guy had made a pass at her. Not only was my house ruined, but my wife felt unsafe in her own home because of Justin's stupidity. I saw red and told him that he was never allowed back in my house. When he asked, "Come on, where am I supposed to go?" I replied that he best book a damn hotel room. That's when I found out that he had drained the money Dad had given him to get settled into the US. All of it was gone in literally a few days. I couldn't care less. I told him to figure it out. The next morning, Dad called me and said that he was really disappointed that I let a kid rough it out like that. Apparently, the idiot called his dad and then spent the night at a gas station. I know that he was super entitled, and I'm definitely not going to apologize for going off on him, but was I TA for kicking someone out into a country they're not familiar with? Update 1. So, Dad landed in the US. He booked an early flight and sent Justin some more money so that he could check into a hotel. I wasn't going to budge on letting my stepbrother back into my home, but I did invite my father to my house so we could talk things over. If he was going to be just as stubborn about forcing a bond with Justin, though, I was going to tell him that I could care less about his inheritance. We'll see how things go, though. Update 2. Speaking to Dad was quite a roller coaster ride. First off, it wasn't just him who came, it was his wife too. And, to my dismay, Justin as well. I couldn't do much about it, and all of us awkwardly sat in the living room. Then, to my surprise, Justin got up and blurted out an apology for his behavior. It was rehearsed, and it sounded like a snotty toddler being forced to apologize by his parents, which isn't too far off from reality. My dad then said that he also didn't understand the full extent of Justin's behavior. And after he learned about how he had drained all of his savings by looking through his transaction history, he had a stern talk with Justin. I'm not surprised that this kid gave dad a very different story than what had gone down, basically saying he lost his money through a scam to which he was a victim and I wasn't willing to hear him out. I scoffed at that and said, Dad, I appreciate you making your kid apologize, but it doesn't change how I feel about him. I won't let him stay with me, and nor would I consider him as my family unless he proves that he is genuinely sorry. I do respect you and your wife, but I need time before I can really even think about calling Justin a brother of mine. That changed the tone from apologetic to icy once again, and they left without promising to meet up or fix things. The inheritance wasn't ever brought up again, and I guess that means that Dad still sticks by what he said. Clara thinks that it would be better for me to just pretend to mend bridges with my stepbrother so that my dad feels more secure about his family and I don't lose the relationship that I built with him over the years. But I just can't bring myself to do that. Update 3. So it's been a month since my dad has moved to the US. In that time, we haven't really spoken to each other, and I think Justin has finally moved into a dorm. However, to my surprise, I got a call from Dad's wife, and she had a heart-to-heart with me, which she admitted that Justin was spoiled because of her. My dad just wanted me to have a relationship with my stepbrother because he was insecure about bringing together the two different parts of his life. He thought that it was a prerequisite for me and Justin to respect each other in order to stop his family from being fragmented. He had confided in her about those feelings, but felt too ashamed to reach out to me. I thanked her for letting me know, and I did tell her that I'd reach out to Dad when I felt ready. Update 4. I spoke to Dad on call, and it was clear that he missed me, and vice versa. He fully admitted to being an a-hole and blinding himself to Justin's terrible behavior, while also forcing me to live with it. He apologized for threatening me about the inheritance and said that I would receive what I deserved regardless. I thanked him and reassured him about our relationship and how it isn't compulsory for me to get along with Justin in order to respect his new family. Things seem much better between us now. NTA, your dad is protecting his son from the consequences of his actions. Simple. NTA, your stepbro sounds like a jerk. I would have kicked him out too, no matter if he's from UK or not. Idiots exist everywhere, and you're within your limits to kick him out. Next story. I'm 24, female. My sister's 21, female. Our mom died when we were young. Parents were divorced by then. Dad remarried a few years ago, and we now have a 4-year-old brother and a 2-year-old sister. We all were living at home. My sister didn't like our stepmom from the start, so things were always kind of tense at home. And she did not handle having more siblings well. She was always the baby and spoiled and entitled. And when the Lils came along, she started rebelling and basically made life hell for everyone in the house. She was coming home drunk constantly at all hours. She would be aggressive and belligerent, especially towards my stepmom. She basically resents the Lils and literally refuses to interact with them, flat out ignores them, tells them to get away from her and calls them names, refuses to help in any way. My dad and stepmom kicked her out a few months back when they found drugs in her purse by the door where the little ones could have gotten into it. Since then, she's been living with the boyfriend of the month, also a real peach. They enjoy the same kinds of dysfunction and habits. So she recently decided that she wants to start coming to family dinners a few times a week and has been telling everyone how good she is doing, being nice to the kids, helping clean up, etc. The other night, after a few glasses of wine, mind you, she takes me aside and lets me know she is cleaning up her act and wants me to help her convince dad and stepmom to let her move back in because she's pregnant. She says she's going to need help raising the baby and it would make things so much easier because they already have all the baby stuff and the house is basically already set up for a baby. She was telling me how excited she was and asked my thoughts, and I was honest with her. I told her it was terrifying, that she was in no way mature enough to do this, and that even her changes were for selfish reasons. I also told her I wasn't going to support the idea of her moving home if I was asked about it. She ended up getting really upset at me and storming out. And when my dad asked what happened, I told him. He was not happy and assured me that he would not be letting her move back in. So, AITA? NTA. She sits there drinking wine while pregnant, then acts insulted when you say she isn't mature enough to have a baby? Especially strange since her current plan to care for said kid is, I'll make my parents do it. It's clear she's highly manipulative, immature, and self absorbed. I hope you and your parents will be there for the poor kid when she inevitably neglects it. NTA, she asked for your help. You told her no and gave your reasons. Ultimately, the decision to move back home is between her, your dad, and your stepmother. If your parents are done having babies, they might be happy to pass along all their gear, as their youngest will be 3 by the time your sister's baby is born. She's not asking to come home for the gear. She wants to come home so that someone else will be responsible for her child. If she continues down this path, you and your folks will be getting a drug-addled infant in 6 to 8 months, as the child will likely be removed from her care. But she still shouldn't be allowed to move back home. Also, this would be the time for your folks to talk to her about getting herself healthy and adopting out the baby. Next story. I, 19 years old, female, have always been very close to my dad's side of the family's grandparents. My grandparents and my dad and I have traveled across the country together, and my dad and I have visited at least once a week while growing up. My dad has an older brother and sister, each with their own sets of children. I am my dad's only child. In December 2022, my grandmother passed away from a very aggressive form of cancer. My dad and I were her primary caregivers throughout her final weeks of life, as she wanted to pass at home. One day, as I was sitting with my grandmother, she gave me her wedding and engagement rings as a 19th birthday present. I was completely shocked but flattered to be gifted these rings. But this gift upsets my entire family, as I was not the next in line to receive them. Shortly after her death, my grandfather received my grandmother's life insurance check. While eating dinner with my grandfather, he told me he had decided to use my grandmother's life insurance check to pay for my tuition and housing at college, because that is what my grandmother would have wanted. My aunt, dad's sister, is helping my grandfather manage all of his finances now that my grandmother has passed. When my grandfather told my aunt about his plans for the money, she was furious. My aunt's daughter was next in line to receive the rings I was gifted. My aunt and her children rarely came around when my grandparents were healthy, as they lived 2 hours away. I was always at my grandparents' house growing up. I feel like if I was gifted the rings and my grandfather willingly decided to pay for my tuition, I have no reason to feel like the a-hole, but I do. My entire extended family is upset with me. AITA? Should I give the rings to the next in line granddaughter? Selfishly, I want to keep the rings as my grandmother wanted me to have them, but I also don't want to lose my family over them. Edited to add. I guess I used the words next in line out of context. My aunt's daughter, my cousin, is the oldest granddaughter and was supposed to inherit the rings. My grandmother was completely coherent when she gave me the rings and asked me to take them off of her fingers, and then she slipped them onto mine. It is one of my favorite memories of my grandmother now. I have decided to keep the rings and accept the life insurance tuition money. Thank you everyone for your kind words, and I hope this edit clears up any questions. OP stop. NTA 1. There is no such thing as next in line unless the owner of said item creates a list. Your cousin is simply the oldest. These are two different things. Get them straight in your head. 2. What people want to do with their possessions is 100% their business. Your grandfather has chosen to gift you tuition. That's their decision to make and their gifts to you. 3. It's unfortunate others in the family are upset. That's their problem. The only response to people like that is, it's unfortunate you feel this way. Do not say things like, I'm sorry, or I'll think about it, or I'll share. If your grandparents wanted to share anything, they would have divided the inheritance themselves. 4. Do not disrespect your grandparents' wishes. These are generous gifts. It's their decision and enjoy. I'm sorry for your loss. Grandparents can sometimes be the most impactful relationship. Glad you had a good one with yours. NTA. The rings are a gift of love, not a birthright. Your grandmother wants you to have it as you have thought of her often during her life and were there for her. Remember, it was her ring. It was her decision. Next story. I'm 24, male. My girlfriend, 23, and I have a 2.5-month-old daughter. We have a system in place that works for us, as I've been back at work for about a month now. My girlfriend gets up during the night if our baby happens to wake up. Lately, she's been sleeping well during the night, so this doesn't happen often, as I have to be up at 4:30 a.m. for work. When I get home from work at about 3 p.m. most days, I take over and give my girlfriend a well-deserved break. I'll do any normal parent duties, etc., and even encourage my girlfriend to get out of the house if she wants and offer to pay for her to treat herself, whether it be getting her nails done or anything else she enjoys. I also cook dinner and clean up afterward while my girlfriend watches the baby. I also do our baby's nighttime routine every night before getting into bed myself at 8:30 p.m. We give her a bath at about 7:30 and then massage her and feed her, and she usually falls asleep halfway through feeding, formula fed. This system works for us, and while some people might not agree, I don't care at all. My friend and I were having a random convo over Messenger, and he was saying how keen he was to sleep in on the weekend. And I responded with saying, LOL, I wish. I don't sleep in anymore. We rotate getting up during the night on days I'm not working, which is the weekend, and I wasn't complaining. I was just stating a fact. And he asked me why I don't. And I responded with basically what I said above. And he said that was freaking stupid and I deserve to sleep in on the weekend because I work during the week. And I asked what he meant. He basically said the man that works during the week to provide should get to sleep in on the weekend. And I responded with saying, I hope he never has kids because I feel sorry for the woman who he has them with. And he called me an a-hole and stopped responding to me. My girlfriend told me I was a bit harsh, but I don't think I was. AITA? Edit. Typo in the title. I meant to say my friend. NTA. Though certain exceptions exist. Two parents are equally responsible for making a baby, so two parents should be equally responsible for caring for a baby. That responsibility will continue as that baby grows up. Beyond that, you and your girlfriend are in a romantic partnership, meaning there are two of you who should be sharing responsibilities beyond baby care. Harsh or not, you spoke the truth. I applaud you for being in a routine already for Bob. Hubby and I made a pact that on the weekends he got to sleep in on Saturdays and on Sundays I got to sleep in. That worked well for us. And those who don't have children can't understand the problems of having babies in the house. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo Relationships.